Welcome back. It's still your day starter here, Trust TV, Daybreak. And of course, this is the discussion segment where we'll be talking about another hot topic with our esteemed guests in the studio. The federal government warns Labour against pushing for unrealistic minimum wage increase to 250,000 naira, citing economic implications. Now, labor unions rejected President Tinubu's claim of an agreement on the new minimum wage, insisting no deal was reached. Unions rejected 62,000 naira offer, calling it a starvation wage. Interesting. However, the state governors say they would not be able to sustain any minimum wage higher than 60,000 naira. The Assistant General Secretary of the NLC, Chris Onyeka, said Labour would not accept any proposal or offer of 62,000 naira and the 100,000 naira proposal made by some individuals and economists. Labour awaits President Tinubu's consideration of their proposal. And now to discuss more on this, of course, we have the former Secretary to the State Government of Adamawa State, Dr. Umar Bindir, here in the studio with us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
You were a former member of the State Executive Council. Well, the state governors now are saying that if it's above 60,000 naira, unfortunately, we will not be able to do anything about the minimum wage. Can you please walk us through some of the dynamics that would make this, difficult and would make state governments unable to meet up with this minimum wage demand?
Well, I think it is not new in our country that many governors are unable to either pay civil servants on time or pay at all. There are state governors that have done their tenures and left with 1 year, 1.5 years arrears of salaries. So it's not new. This is the old, in fact, even the old minimum wage of 30,000. There are many state governors that could not actually pay that. So for me, when I see this, I call it drama. This is one of the reasons why Nigeria is voted as one of the happiest communities in the world, because sometimes we're ridiculous. We like things that excites people, and we continue regurgitating on these things over and over again. Look, the largest employer of labor in our country is the informal sector. That's it. It is the most vibrant business sector. The mama put, the woman selling smoked fish, the ones selling bitter leaf in the market, the ones manufacturing dudu ocean, my mother that is extracting oil out of groundnuts and frying koli koli, the ones that you see selling sugarcane on wheelbarrows, oranges in the street. This is the most vibrant economic sector in this country. And these are not registered with labor. They are also the largest employer of labor. So the vicious circle is that everybody would want a rise, whether you are a formal laborer or a formal employee or informal employee. So labor has the employed in the private sector, the employed in the public sector, who are paid on pensionable or non-pensionable, taking uniform salaries every month, coming to the office or site or whatever. The moment you increase the salary of these formally engaged people, the informally engaged people also are waiting for their salary increase. How do they increase their salary? The prices of their goods will go up. So that's the vicious circle. So once the prices of tomato goes up, the prices of ram goes up, the prices of onion goes up, then the organized private sector or the organized labor will now start saying, oh, what we have is not a living wage. It cannot even buy kuli kuli and pay my child's school fees and so on and so forth. And that is the vicious circle. So the thing is, when I was secretary to the government, I think the wisdom starts for any government with the fear of labor. Once they shake, they stop everything in the state, and the governor will start shivering, and everybody will start shivering. So yes, it is a very dicey issue. It's a very, very tricky issue, but it is on the table for us to look at.
I'm not surprised that you'd talk this way, Dr. Bindir, probably because you served as national coordinator of the NSIP. But then again, while social investment seems to be a key factor to consider in this situation, would you say that the government is doing enough to do so? Because, I mean, conversations has just been on the minimum wage, forgetting that well over 90% of engaged persons in Nigeria like you said, are in the informal sectors. You know, they run all of these small and medium enterprises, and at this moment it's looking like they're not having enough support from the government. So in the off chance that the government is in some way or the other able to agree with labor for a wage that is either higher or lower than 60,000 naira, what happens to that sector?
Well, the obvious will happen. The prices will go up, and then there will be chaos all over the place. Food will not be readily available. Food will be very, very expensive. People will cry out again. Before you know, labor will be back on the streets to say again, this is not a living wage. You see, in this era of digital life, where everybody seems to know what is happening, gone are the days when labor strikes in Lagos, the people in Maiduguri doesn't know what is happening. The people in Sokoto doesn't know what is happening. The people in Otuoke doesn't know what is happening. No. You touch anything, touch a button in Lagos, the guy in Maiduguri knows. So the digital life has affected all of us. So movement of information, real information, video information, graphic information is everywhere every day. So if you allow anything to spark off, it affects everybody. So to me, we have to be very, very innovative. The first thing that we should be innovative is that we must close our eyes and say that this our system, formal or informal, in terms of production, must skyrocket. We must improve our productivity. I have not seen governors tackling the informal sector creatively. I have not seen palliatives or support to the informal sector. Very difficult. The NSIP tried to do what we call as GEEP, Government Enterprise and Empowerment Program, where you are giving, in quote, loan that has no collateral, no interest rate to women in the market. But anywhere you say there's no collateral, no interest rate, it is more or less like free, if you know what I mean. It's a very wise, creative way of supporting people. But then you have to follow it very, very closely. No one can repay a loan if they have not succeeded. So you must be able to say that, hey, you must go to the market must be clean, people must come to the market, it must be safe, then you will now start noting that the vegetable is getting cheaper, the producer is producing a lot and is selling in them, and so this vicious circle of production must be creatively tackled. So, and then the politicians must understand that when I see at the highest level, from senators, members of the House of Reps, members of House of Assembly, and even governors and so on and so forth, doing their constituency projects. And you see massive land and islands of keke napep, sewing machines, all these hair dryers. We are just exporting prosperity and importing poverty. What we should do is to say that, yes, we have constituency projects, but those items that should be dished out to our people must be made in Nigeria. Even the keke napep, let's say 60%, must be made in Nigeria. We must actually shake our hands to say that this has to happen. But for that to happen, you must have the technocrats, you must have training, you must have reading of drawings, you must have support for even, I pass my neighbor generator so that they can weld. You must build capacity. This is the generic creativity that has to be injected in our country. When you do that, then increases in salaries will not even come up because everybody is making some income, and then we're sort of like cycling and recycling the wealth.
Doctor, earlier you mentioned that Nigerians are ranked as one of the happiest people in the world. That brought two things to my mind. First of all, the fact that Nigerians are one of the most resilient in the world as well. And there's this term, anti-fragility, which means Nigerians have been described as individuals who would find themselves in the most dire circumstances. They will not only survive it, but also thrive in it. Now, this now brings me to the unlimited bandwidth of patience that Nigerians have for their government. We've seen situations where the government has flagrantly gone on, some would call it luxurious spendings, talking about the purchase of SUVs for the National Assembly members. We've seen governors do the same thing for state assembly members and also monarchs in the state. However, it's looking like increasing the minimum wage is becoming a burden to the government, especially in situations where we hear cases like Yabelo evading arrest, the likes of different governors who have not been able to, to be brought to justice for all levels of fraud and whatever situation or, whatever accusation has been leveled against them. Now, with all of this in mind, do you think the government will do anything that would seem to impress Nigerians, especially when it looks like the government is top-heavy and the citizens continue to suffer the brunt of all of this?
Well, let me start with the happiness. You know, food and food supply is key to everything. Food, demand for food can only increase. It will never ever come down. And the good thing about Nigeria is that while the Ijo man is happy with his periwinkle, I mean, the first time I saw periwinkle and I saw somebody bringing a pin to get it out, I was shocked. I said, what the hell is this? I'm from Adamawa, I'm a Fulani man. It does not even make any sense to my life. But that guy in Otuoke can kill for periwinkle. The same thing when you go to the Yoruba land, his amala and his shaki and his ewedu or whatever.
Second to none.
Second to none. And to Sokoto man, this is not really something that, you know. So this traditional system of food supply is what is making Nigeria, whatever he does, he can eat something.
But also, we're seeing this gradually dwindling away.
But that is now where the creativity comes in. Don't allow it to dwindle away. You know, I always give example with Anko Borrowers. Anko Borrowers is a very, very good program. And we have seen how Anko Borrowers have actually, people have not studied this. I'm a scientist. I've looked at this. It has actually helped Nigeria to scale through COVID.
How so?
Because Nigerians actually started producing rice heavily. Call it as some people are evading the payment of the loan or whatever, but I can tell you, with blockage of the borders, with no imports, with very stringent smuggling regimes, still rice that has now become the universal food for Nigerians was available. But let me tell you the surprising thing. Surprising thing is that with this supply chain on rice, Thailand cannot be happy with Nigeria. Vietnam cannot be happy with Nigeria. India cannot, anybody who is exporting rice to this massively rice-eating country will not be happy. So they will directly or indirectly do everything to kill this program. And that's what we see happening. Now, some of these few pockets of people who did wrong, you know, I mean, if you do wrong, you can, they are being debranding the program as very corrupt and so on and so forth. No. When you succeed, even on a scale of 0 to 10, even if it is 2 over 10, maintain that 2. If it is 3 over 10, maintain that 3. Deal with the 7 on why have you not succeeded and be able to do so. Nigeria has to again be very, very creative. Not everybody likes us. Not everybody likes us to be peaceful. I mean, only yesterday I was reading was it in Zamfara or so, a traditional ruler is involved in insecurity. A former local government chairman was, you see how it works. These are people at the highest level who should have interest in peace. So something is happening and we are not. Again, in around the axis of Yobe, Maiduguri, they said the pylon has been, or electricity has been damaged again. And then they've thrown that wing of the country. Come on. Can't we have CCTV or whatever, even when you know that this place, so that you can see 24/7 somebody is sitting like this looking at these pylons? How many of them? So that you can, so Nigeria has to be very creative to sustain this very vibrant country, and it goes into food too. So yes, I agree with you. Things are weakening up, but we must get into innovation and creativity beyond what you can think of.
So this brings me to this question.
Yeah.
The minimum wage, is it more important to Nigerians currently than food supply? Because I heard an argument that perhaps if food was in excess supply, and if it was available, and if the inflation was maybe quite lower than it is currently, Nigerians may not have been clamoring for a minimum wage increase as much as they've been doing so currently. Because remember, during President Buhari's regime, the minimum wage was supposed to be reviewed, I think, somewhat 2019, but that review came later in 2020. And Nigerians were not so vocal as they are currently. So, you know, social welfare is your fault. If there was an excellent amount of food supply, would you say that the clamor would be lower than it is now? No
one actually has said that minimum wage should constantly be reviewed to be higher. It could be reviewed to be lower too. Indeed. You know, depending on the, and food supply is key. If you can take 10 naira and be able to pick 5 kg of rice, right? And the government has worked so hard to ensure that rice is being produced everywhere. Irrigation facilities are everywhere. Hybrid or improved seeds are available. Fertilizer is available. Processing equipment in the rural areas are available. And people massively can produce rice, so much so that rice is like you can take it. Why can't government say, look, we have worked very hard on this food supply, and we're going to review, there's too much money in the system, and therefore we're going to review this thing to come down a little bit. It's possible. But when food supply is narrowing down, it's a demand and supply system. When the demand is high, which we are a large population, and the supply is low, the productivity is low, of course prices will go up. When prices are going up, review of salaries can only be on the higher side. So yes, the review is a vicious circle, you know.
But then we've never seen in Nigeria where prices of commodities are...
Because we have not worked on this. Let me tell you, if we were to work... Look at how ridiculous we are. We are in the rainy season now. We're sitting like this. Before you know, NIMET has announced that, oh, this state, this local government will be flooded. We don't do anything to do with flooding other than prepare to protect people when they are being carried away with the water. And water is key for agriculture. By now, Nigerian academia or the researchers or the technologists or the engineers would have come up with a solution. We know where these floods happen. How do we canalize it? How do we dam it? How do we keep it underground? How do we maintain that the rivers are actually flowing to areas of productivity? This is what we should be creative, no matter how expensive it is. You know, not necessarily to say we'll mop all this water in the northeast and recharge the lake Chad. That is a very passive way. It's good, but it's passive. But
every day, every rainy season, they open up the Lagdo Dam.
Every day, in fact, we should look at it as an opportunity. Nigerians should be praying that open Lagdo Dam, because we've done our infrastructure very well, so that all the water, when it comes to you, if you don't do anything with it, it will carry you and go. This is just the behavior of water. So, to me, it is possible, but we have to be creative on so many things. We cannot continue doing the same thing and expect a different outcome. Einstein said, this is only stupid people do that, you know. So we shouldn't be stupid to be doing that. So I expect that our researchers in terms of animal breeding should be breeding better so that they are producing animals that can grow fatter quickly. Our own seed multipliers are working on the seed so that they can even survive 2 or 3 rainfalls, and you can produce. We should be producing tomatoes 6 times in a year. We should be producing onions 6 times in a year in the areas where it is very good. Why not? We have the capacity. For God's sake, we have over 260 universities in this country. What do they do in those universities? Orosanye report has indicated that we have more than 600 agencies in this country. More than 300 are research facilities. What are they doing there that they cannot pump up this country to be more productive? So we have to work harder. We have to be more creative, more technically oriented, more scientific. Unfortunately, I think our politics too doesn't help it. You know, our politics too does interfere with these things, such that these high-performing points actually don't bloom very, very quickly because of the way we play politics.
Talking about the way we play politics and our politicians and, of course, our government officials, Dr. Bindir, would you say that perhaps if we see our politicians showing more concern to the situation by probably publicly taking pay cuts and publicly cutting the cost of government and governance, that it would probably assuage the feelings of Nigerians who feel that they're just there to rake up all they can and leave Nigerians in a lurch?
Well, I think there are 2 ways of looking at it. It doesn't matter. You can pay them anything, but as long as they deserve that pay. What I mean by they deserve this pay is that this country's governing structure is fantastic. You have 36 states. Each state has a governor, a deputy governor, 3 senators, a number of House of Reps, and a number of House of Assembly, local government chairman, and ward council, every state. Then you have nearly 9,000 wards in this country. At every single level we elect a councillor. Would it be nice to say that every councillor stays in his own ward, only when they have meeting for the assembly in the local government that they go? Will it be nice to find every local government chairman working in his own local government, finding the problems of his local government, trying with his team to solve it? Will it be nice to say that every House of Assembly person visit his constituency literally every week? Will it be, as you go up higher and higher, it is only the president and the vice president that will continue rolling around from time to time. Every senator should visit his senatorial district. All the local governments should see him. Let him understand the insecurity there. Let him understand the hardship of the farmers. Let us understand the hardship created by the flooding, and so on and so forth. If we were to do this, what you pay the senators, what you pay the members of House of Reps may be okay. But when you fold your arms in Abuja and you're driving an SUV, living in very nice environment, possibly visiting your constituency only once or twice in a year, that I think, even for anybody who is fearing God, is not nice, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So payment is a payment commensurate to what you do. We should make sure that the doing is vibrant. And that's what brings me back to the innovation. When a local government chairman is constantly seeing the efforts being put by women in his local government, the efforts being put by small-scale farmers in his own local government, he himself, in addition to what he do, he will try to partner with the member of the House of Assembly to say, hey, in this local government, it has to be scientific. There must be data. It will be nice to see local government chairmen using data. It will be nice to see members of the House of Assembly opening a paper like this to say that I have 20 primary schools and only 3 have got well-trained headmasters. What do I do? You know, it would be nice to see member House of Reps here in Abuja having data about all the primary health care facilities in his own local governments to say that, how come that 20 or 30% of them don't have doctors? What do I need to do? Where do we get doctors for our people? This kind of technical discussion, if it is happening with our leaders, then you'll find that the payment issue will not be discussed that much. But when we have so much problems, very primitive problems at the bottom, and then you are hanging up there, then people will start asking questions.
Let's talk about revenue generation. It's no news that state governors, most of them go cap in hand to Abuja to beg for all sorts of bailouts, to pay salaries, to carry out infrastructural projects and the likes. Meanwhile, you know, they parade themselves, the chief security officers of the state, the CEO of the state, as the case may be. But some of these states do terribly in terms of internally generated revenue per month, and they mostly just await for all sorts of security votes and FAC allocations at the end of the month. Do you think that the states could do better in terms of improving their own personal revenue generation so as, you know, to help and aid in some of these projects that might require heavy amounts of money?
Of course, you know, taxes is synonymous to revenue generation.
Indeed.
And taxes, you are taxing somebody who is earning something. Earning is a function of productivity. Again, it brings you back to the innovation. There is no state in this country, if it works very hard, based on the privileges and opportunities it has in terms of natural raw materials, artificial things, skills, and so on, that cannot generate a reasonable amount of resources to also assist what they get from Abuja. But I can tell you there are states that you go to, they don't know what is happening in the agricultural sector. All they know is that, insecurity, people are killing people, and then people are running all over the place. Let me tell you a secret. Most of this killing and non-killing are done by young people. You don't see 60-year-old people carrying gun and shooting people. It's all between 25 to 30 and so on and so forth. And anywhere you have young person is energy. That energy can be dissipated negatively, can be dissipated positively. The idea of governors should be, how on earth can I get the energy of those young people when they have 20 years or 30 years of energy to dissipate so that they can dissipate it positively? Agriculture comes into being. This is the easiest and the most vibrant sector. Possibly in some areas, solid minerals too. You know, so again, you have to build capacity, you have to train, you have to support people to succeed, and you have to monitor the productivity. I have not seen an environment where a young person has a job, whether in the field or in the farm or in the shop or whatever, and he goes for 3, 4, 5 hours, and he comes back in the evening, eats food, whatever he can eat, and then say, now it's time to flex and go and kill people. I've not seen that. You know, it is so jobs that is based on skills that will have gainful income is the key. You don't hear governors talking of, I have done this.
Just to interject, so these are the issues that an increased minimum wage will not address.
Well, the increased minimum wage is you swing again back to the formal sector. Salary earners, civil servants, salary earners in the field.
I am
from Adamawa State. there are very few industries in Adamawa State employing people. So if you are talking of private sector employees, minimum wage, you are certainly not discussing about Adamawa State, but you are talking about the civil servants in Adamawa State.
Indeed.
When I was SSG, there was a time when, you know, every governor, when you go, you say, oh, there are ghost workers and so on and so forth. You try to do all this. It's a business, of course, yes. But I said to the governor, sir, why don't we say first, this is the infrastructure we have in education, in health, in all these things, and this is the manpower that we require. Let us look at the manpower we have, take what we need, fix it on this infrastructure. The rest, let us partner with the College of Education, convert them into teachers, so that they can teach in primary schools, teach in secondary schools, and teach in schools of nursing and so on and so forth. Still the same income. You don't need to change the salary. You know what I mean? But engage them more. So it brings you to productivity justifies payment. But when you are paying and the productivity is very, very weak, then you start asking for so many questions.
So then what should the government focus on if it intends to have a minimum wage that would reflect the yearnings of Nigerians and one that would sustain them through the period before it calls for another review?
Well, I think the government, when it talks with labor on these things, they should talk based on evidence. What is the kind of volume of people are we looking for? How many of these people are actually good engineers that are idle? How many of these people who are well-trained agriculturists that are not doing anything? How many of these people who should be teaching, but they have found themselves in customs and so on and so forth? How many? Labor should have this kind of very well analyzed data so that it can also help government to be able to channel energies appropriately. And I think, again, I always come back to wage is not really a big deal. If you are paying me and I am working the pay, you will not feel the heaviness of the pay. But when you are paying me and you are still challenges to do with my own payment, my security, for example, he is asleep and some burglars got into my house, broke into my burglar proofing, entered my house, stole my 55-inch TV and left. I was very, very disappointed that why should I be paying you? And then I have a wall, I have razor wire, they cut the razor wire, all this you are sleeping. It means for the 6 or 7 hours that you should have been awake, you are not awake. So if I sack this man, you see, he is going to enter another phase. So I sat him down and I started counseling him. I planned now. I said, you can sleep in the afternoon because all of us are walking around the house. But at night, please, and we sleep around maybe 10, 11 o'clock. From 11 o'clock until 3, please be awake and be going around. By the time you hit 4 o'clock, the mosque are already calling prayers, and therefore you see that people are beginning to move. This is how you plan. And I saw improvement. And now I'm happy paying him. I even gave him a rise. You know what I mean? So this has to happen at all levels. And if it does, this payment thing will just dwindle, because if I'm taking 100 naira and I can buy a bag of rice to my family, if I'm taking 1,000 naira and I cannot buy the same bag of rice, you can now see. So it is productivity that can actually neutralize.
Indeed, productivity. But finally, this question, because of course I'm going to ask, do you think the labor's demand is ridiculous?
Well, you know, I am not particularly a labor specialist, but certainly labor must have a reason for asking what they ask. One of the arguments that I have seen, somebody put an analysis that 2,000 and so minimum wage is 30, 2,000 and so minimum wage is 30, it has not increased. It doesn't make sense that it is just the increase that you are looking at. I think it is beyond this kind of thing. Maybe they have the capacity and capability, they've done a lot of analysis, which they are not talking to the general public to understand, and they're just talking of the figure. But for me, if you are walking the talk, if you are walking the pay, I think if you ask for the rise based on the efforts you are making, and we're seeing the impact, we're seeing the incomes, is justifiable.
And then do you think the government is being insensitive by not considering the offer that Labour is putting forward?
Well, I think the government on the other side is looking at its own capacity and capability to cope with the figures. I mean, it's very easy to do that in some states where the only industry for employing people is the civil service. Now, when you raise that, you get what I mean? Certainly it's going to weaken them more. Don't compare Yobe and Lagos. Yobe is more difficult to govern than Lagos. Benue is more difficult to govern than Lagos. Bayelsa is more difficult to govern than, because why? Lagos actually can operate without a government. Because the hustling, the bustling, even a beggar in Lagos must plan. I will beg in Surulere in the morning, and I'll go to Ajegule in the evening.
But some will say these were structures that were laid down by previous governors who, put in the work, as opposed to these other states.
Well, it could be, but I mean, the whole thing is a system. It's a system. If you want to be very, very productive, you have to work very hard.
Indeed.
And that is why governors that you see entering government house looking very weak and shabby, by the time they spend 4 years, they are looking very shiny and with big gown. Something is wrong. But when you see a governor, going in shiny. And is shining, and by the time it's 4 years, he's looking wrinkly and so on, and I gave a good example with El-Rufai, to be quite honest. When I saw El-Rufai becoming the governor, all his hair was black. By the time he finished, all his hair was white. So I was asking him, Your Excellency, what is it? He said, Dr. Bindir, wait, and when it comes to your turn, you will know.
Indeed, when it comes to your turn, you will know. And so people like us would definitely be in the gallery and in the sidelines observing, because you speak so much about what the government is supposed to do, and of course the role you've played in the social welfare sector. It's been a pleasure having this conversation with you, Dr. Bindir, and of course sharing perspectives on the situation, especially as it regards what the government should be focusing on, more importantly as regards food production, social welfare for citizens. Dr. Bindir, thank you so much for being a part of.
But my final advice to government is that utilize your academia more. There is a real shift, and they are not being utilized very well.
To the government, 230 federal institutions across the nation. There you have it. Dr. Bindir has told you, utilize the academia more, because I mean, that's our ivory towers. That's where all of the research is expected to go on with regards food security, development and AI, technology, and all of these international best practices as we know them. Dr. Bindir has told us where to look. I bet we just have to look there. Well, it's been a lovely conversation with Doctor from the beginning of the discussion segment till now.